discussing the Christian concept of resurrection, after which this retreat has been named. Continuing with that discussion, for us, in the tradition of Vedanta, any kind of quote unquote resurrection is from the ajnanam, atma ajnanam, self-ignorance, to understanding, to moksha, self-knowledge, and that moksha means the ability to see that one is not affected by any kind of sorrow, fear, and a whole host of other things that comes along with these two main pillars of samsara, fear and sorrow. These are the pillars of samsara. So the resurrection is a cognitive freedom, because the freedom cannot be anything other than cognitive. And if you see why it cannot be anything other than cognitive, because this freedom is a siddha vastu, it's an established fact. That you are already free is a self-evident reality. You don't need to become free. Vedanta is freedom from becoming, and then in order to become free from becoming, then if I have to become free, then it is pointless. So this freedom is already there. One is already free of fear and sorrow. This is hard to wrap the mind around initially, and so we give the example of sleep. Whenever you go to sleep, including in Vedanta class, what happens? There is oneness. There is a kind of a oneness. And that oneness is best described by the word ananda, joy. That's why it is so difficult to come out of sleep. And so therefore, this joy one has already tasted and experienced. In fact, one experiences every night. Even in the waking moments, there are periods of unbridled joy when the subject, I, becomes united, quote unquote, with the object of desire, such as ice cream, chocolate cake, etc., etc. You can put all your ishta objects. You can think about that. So when you unite with your ishta objects, there is joy. Now, an important thing to point out is that the joy that is sensed when uniting with the object of desire has nothing to do with the object itself. Why? Because the object simply is. It is incapable of producing joy or sorrow when we look at the world with the eyes of atma jñānam, self-knowledge. An objective view of the world will yield the first pearl of wisdom, which is that the objects in themselves are incapable, they are not producing either joy or sorrow. The pursuit towards gaining those objects which one thinks will produce joy, and the running away from those objects which one thinks will produce sorrow, in other words, to put it in fancy Sanskrit, pravritti, nivritti pursuits. Pravritti, chasing after; nivritti, running away from. So both these pursuits are based on an important thing, And what is that based on? It is based on adhyasa. What is this adhyasa? This adhyasa, it means a personal projection over the objects of this universe. So that personal projection causes one to run after a few things. And of course, our classic example is what? When you classic example, Adi Shankara example for chasing after objects is what? You can type. When you chase after something, what is the class? No, 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 not Rajju Sarpa. That is for Nivritti. Snake rope is the opposite example. Yeah. So, mother of pearl, not even silver coin. Mother of pearl. Yeah, pearl's mummy. Okay, mother of pearl. So the mother of pearl is sitting there in the sand. You are just taking a nice walk on the beach. Then what happens? And then in your mind is some information that the government has released some silver $10 coins. And you have read that online. Limited edition. Because America thrives on creating a scarcity mentality. Okay, limited edition. So then you see something shining, it's about the same size. Where is the size? In your head, because you not haven't really seen it, this dollar. So you think it's a silver coin and you run in the sand. Pravritti towards the silver coin is born of the adhyasa, where, on top of that which is already there, which is neither silver nor coin, it is something that you have coined in your head. It is not a coin at all. It is mother of pearl, the mother where the pearl was born. It has a shiny surface and oyster shell, and that shine, with the help of the reflection of the sun, water, everything, and then the the personal reflection, the personal projection of your desire to have this silver coin, or at best the curiosity for this silver coin, makes you run towards this object. Okay, then what? Then the opposite example is that of our famous rope and snake. That's why it's called aropa, personal projection, that which is made over the rope. And that's why the sages of the Sanskrit language, they were very prescient, because they could see that maybe later on they will have a term called rope. Aropa comes first. Out of that, through some complicated Sanskrit rules, is derived the word rope. Okay, yeah. So, and then what? Then the snake, much like the silver coin, is in the head. But they sit in the head differently. The silver coin sits in the head in the form of a ishtavastu. Ishtavastu darshanat, adhyasa hai. So this adhyasa is born of this ishtavastu, which I project over something that is seen, because that something which is seen is not very well known. It's kind of known. The shine of the mother of pearl is known, but that which is it is a mother of pearl is not known. So this partial knowledge leads one to have a subjective projection. Very important to understand. Then on the reverse is, so here is a subjective projection based on raga. This causes a pursuit in life called pravritti. Now, don't just sit with the silver coin example. You have to expand the silver coin to include all the things that one chases after in life. Okay. So then, on the other side, we have nivritti. And what is nivritti? Freedom, from that very thing. So the nivritti based pursuit also sits in the heart, but sits differently than the pravritti based pursuit. The pravritti based pursuit is recognized as a strong desire, and the nivritti based pursuit is recognized as a strong distaste or fear. Like the rope snake. The rope, like the mother of pearl, is simply an object sitting in the grass, in the sand, wherever it is located. It neither has the power to give you joy, nor has the power to give you fear. It simply is. When the rope is not adequately recognized as rope, it is one's own projection. So here it is not ishtavastu, it's anishtavastu, not desired vastu, that is projected on the partially known rope. That's why all the rope snake examples, if you have noticed closely, happen in twilight. They don't, I mean, nobody gives the rope snake example during bright daylight because the rope can be seen as a rope. If the rope is seen as a rope, how can there be aropa? Tell me. There cannot. And again, the rope snake example is not given on a amavasya, moonless night, pitch dark, moonless night. Why? Because there is no rope to be seen. And if there is no rope to be seen, there is no adhyasa, there is no projection possible. So the rope technically is called adhishthana, that which becomes the sitting duck for all projections. And the subjective projection itself is called aropa. So now we have two different kinds of subjective projections. The one based on raga, strong desire, tivra ichha, and the one based on fear or dvesha, strong distaste, etc. So these are so where are the projections coming from? In other words, where is the silver coin? Right here. Where is the snake? Right here. So one carries the projection whenever one encounters the world. In fact, let's not forget that the world includes your very own body, mind, sense complex. The world includes that. And if the world includes the body, mind, sense complex, that means there can be projections on the body, and there frequently are. There are projections on the mind, centered on the mind. There are projections centered on the sense organs. Kanoham, badhiroham, etc. I am blind, I am one-eyed, I am lame, I am deaf, etc. Centered on the body, centered on the mind, all these projections are there. And the gamut, the sum total of these projections are the prasada. The projections are a prasada of Atma Ajnanam. If Atma Ajnanam was distributing prasada, it would be in the form of all these various projections. The ground is set. The ground is set because the objects which I encounter in the universe are not fully known. The objects which I encounter in the universe are not fully known as what? As a projection of Bhagavan. That already these objects are projections. I live in a projected universe. This body itself is a projection. The mind is a projection. The sense organs are a projection. Projection of what? That which indwells this body, mind, sense complex in the form of that conscious being aware of these projections. The conscious being that indwells the body, mind, sense complex, aware of these projections, is called Atma, Atman. And then that same conscious being that is involved in this projecting, the so-called projection of the universe, is called Ishvara Brahman. So really, that which indwells this body mind sense complex, namely the I, is just Ishvara alone. What indwells this body mind sense complex is a conscious self, a being that is conscious of the objects and conscious of the ahankara, the I notion attached to this body mind complex, conscious of the projections, is capable of withdrawing the projections as well. So this being equipped with that awareness is in fact a nameless, formless being which is all knowledge, including the knowledge of I am. And that all knowledgeable being, why is it all knowledge? Because the knowledge of I am is based on the knowledge of I know. Which comes first, chicken or egg? Does I am come first? Well, of course it has to come first, one will say. Because if I don't know, if I don't exist, then how will I know that I exist? So of course I am has to come first. Some people might say, and guess what? They will be right. And the other people will say, what use is the existence if I don't know about it? An unknown existence is useless. So I know comes first. They would also be right. I am Sat. I know Chit. I know I am Chit. Which comes first? Both. There is no first because they are timeless. When you're looking for an order, that means one is already in the time-space matrix. Already in the time-space matrix. Because you're looking for what comes first, what comes second. First and second is based on time. So here, this Sat is not subject to time. This Chit is not subject to time. Time is yet to come. Space is yet to come. Sat Chit are the mother and father of time and space. They are involved in the so-called projection of time and space, so they cannot come under the spate of time or space. And this Sat-Chit together, since they are timeless, since they are not under the matrix of time or space, they are Ananta, endless, limitless. And this is in keeping with the basic human desire. Why human desire? The basic desire of all jantus, all beings. And what is the basic desire? I want to be forever. The desire to be. That is why there are certain nocturnal biting animals, things. Why? Because they want to go under the stealth of night and bite you. No bed bug will make itself available to be seen during the day. You don't see them at all. In fact, during the night also you don't see them. As soon as you shine the light, they scurry away and hide. The mosquitoes also bite you when they are not looking because they know very well that you as a Vedantin have appointed yourself to give them moksha by making them into a chutney. They know that. They don't want the moksha you give. They want to be alive. The desire to be and to be forever is the desire, in other words, to be Ananta is a universal desire. Universal desire. And for the human being, there is a special manifestation of the desire, primarily because this human being is what? Is very much aware of this desire. With other beings, the desire is more or less, what's the word for it? Is more or less taken for granted, is not inquired into. But in the human being, that consciousness, that awareness is unbridled. In other beings, it's more or less programmed. The cow has a few desires. Maybe I will go to the other pasture because the pasture on the other side is greener. It has some daisies, it has some flowers. Let me go there and enjoy. A few desires. But the cow doesn't have the desire to write a book. Maybe it will have the desire to eat the book you write, but it will not have the desire to write the book. Memoirs of, maybe it will not call it memoirs, moom wires, because it says moom wires of a forgotten cow. It will not be there. You may write that kind of a memoir, not the cow. And so therein lies the difference between a programmed jantu and a jantu, that is the human being, that is not programmed. The unprogrammed human being is unbridled enough to recognize that one is all consciousness, to recognize the truth of one's nature as Satchid Ananda. That whatever I desire, I already am. The desire to be immortal, check, I already am immortal. The desire to be free from a whole host of unwanted things, emotions, situations, constrictions, yes, it is already there. And so, the capacity to understand this is a blessing, comes from a human life alone. But the human life is also fraught with some challenges, and that challenge is that unlike a cow, there will not be a complex centered on the self. The human being is a complex animal because there are too many complexes. I am not good enough, I am an idiot, I wish I were better, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, based on some kind of a lack centered on the self. This is the lack. So there is a big lack centered on the self. And that lack one is aware of. That because of the lack, the life is best described as lackluster. Because the luster of the I, the self-evident I as Brahman is not recognized, is not understood. So therefore, any pursuit that we talk about, the pursuits have to do with understanding this. It's a cognitive pursuit. Because that which needs to be accomplished in life, namely becoming limitless, becoming big, becoming limitless, is already achieved. Siddha vastu. And so therefore, the pursuit is verily, necessarily cognitive. And because of this cognitive pursuit, we study. Because of the nature of the pursuit is cognitive, we study. Number one. The second reason we study Vedanta is because one needs to remove these complexes, these adhyasas centered on the I, centered on Ishvara as an authority figure, centered on the Jagat. To pull back the projections is a great blessing. Jnanam, Atma Jnanam, self-knowledge, is nothing other than the ability to withdraw these projections in the form of Ishta and Anishta. Desirable things, undesirable things. So, Ishtavastu praptehe, when confronted with a desirable object, event or situation, a conducive situation, the person is not moved. The person doesn't lose it due to ecstasy. The Bhagavad Gita says this in many occasions, many places. And when confronted with anishta, a scenario where things are not going according to one's plan. One is not going into dejection or sorrow. This is what the Bhagavad Gita says. This is the jñāni lakshana. And why is this jñāni lakshana? Because the jnani, because of Atma Jnanam, is freed from the disease of one's positive and negative projections, which causes one to act in pravritti mode or nivritti mode. One is neither chasing after something nor one is running away from the world of snakes, which are really, revealed to be rope. This, so if we have a concept of resurrection, this is the resurrection. To rise from the ashes like a phoenix from the gamut of one's own projections. The projections are made into vibhuti, burnt by the third eye of Lord Shiva, whose blessing is to burn these useless desires in the form of kama. And when the kama itself is gone, the projections are of course burnt, because the projections come along with the desires. In fact, it's not even the desires that the third eye of the Lord burns. The third eye of the Lord burns the notion that I am a lacking person, I am a wanting person, I am a person full of desires, and therefore without fulfilling them I cannot be. This is what Lord Shiva burns. And Lord Shiva burns that time-bound creature, the space-bound, time-bound creature, which is this ahankara, which has internalized these projections, which has internalized its own identity as the one who is subject helplessly to pravritti, nivritti pursuits. This is what is burnt. Very, very interesting. And that third eye is a timeless eye. Timelessness, the eye of limitlessness, the eye of knowledge, the eye of immortality. And everybody is afraid of Shiva's third eye. Not so the Vedantin. The Vedantin, not much. Why? Because we want certain things to go. In the wake of ajnanam, which is burnt away, then only the jnanam is evident. So we are not worried about the third eye. Only those who are committed to saṃsāra are afraid of the third eye. We are not afraid of the third eye. In fact, it's the only eye, the eye of Vedanta, pun intended. The eye of Vedanta, the eye of being in the present, the eye of not being affected by the body, mind, sense complex, by the jagat, which is an extension, and by Ishvara, or by one's notions of Ishvara, coming under the spell of papa, punya, all these things. That freedom alone is what is at stake here. That freedom alone, it's a very, very costly imprisonment. So the freedom becomes all the more desirable. And then when the kama is burnt away, it becomes vibhuti, the ashes with which you adorn yourself to show that one is timeless. The burnt kamas, jnanagni sarva karmani, the burnt karmas, bhasmasat kurute. Bhagavad Gita says the burnt kamas and the burnt karmas is just like a burnt rope. It may have the various curvatures and the twists, but it is not capable of even being attached to a pot and being lowered into the well to draw some water, because it has no shakti at all. So this is how all the kamas and the vasanas get burnt in the wake of this knowledge. And for us, that is the resurrection from the time, the cross, the so-called cross of the time-space matrix. If we were to look at the life of Jesus from a Vedantin's perspective, this is what it would yield. The body here that is put on the cross is the ahankara that is identified with time and space. And that ahankara is sacrificed at the altar of this knowledge. And then what do you get? You get an immortal being. And that immortality is not measured through the body, through the mind, through the senses. That immortality is you, is centered on you. This is really the teaching. And so now there is always, um, a discussion on how best to gain these teachings. In fact, among Vedanta students, there is always some kind of a discussion. Which is the best Upanishad? I like Taittiriya. No, very long. I like Ishavasya. No, Kena Upanishad. I just, something it does to me. I don't know what it does to me, but it really speaks to me. No, I think Tattva Bodha. Now we are coming to the second, quote unquote, secondary works. Tattva Bodha. No, Bhagavad Gita. No, you are all on the level. This is another Vedanta complex. So you are all on the level of Bhagavad Gita, etc. I have reached to Brahma Sutra. Don't talk to me if you're not talking any Brahma Sutras. I refuse to converse if you're not talking Brahma Sutras. So everybody has their favorite text, which is the best way to accomplish this resurrection. And the texts that we are going to be studying for this retreat are really, among the best, because really there is no such thing as the best text, because the word best is again part of a subjective projection. But here, when that word best is applied to a text of Vedanta, we let it slide. Because this is one step better than saying this is the best movie or the best chocolate cake or the best ice cream. Why? Because we are not talking of something that is incapable of producing joy. We are talking here of the text that connects you to that self which is naturally joyous. And true, Ishta and Anishta have both to be dropped, to be queried, to be understood as we will see as mithya. Mithya means not a dependent reality, not really satyam, not really the truth of yourself. True, this Ishta, Anishta with regard to the text is also dropped. But I will add a word, eventually. So we let it slide when we hear things like, this is the best text. Or even, this is my guru is the best guru. Theek hai, no problem. So be it, because this is a projection. The projection of a desirable projection on the knowledge is indeed desirable because it connects you to the teaching. So that kind of a projection is harmless, because neither the guru nor the knowledge takes in the projection and has a counter projection on you. Not possible. So therefore it is harmless. And it is allowed in the beginning, because the idea is later on all the Upanishads will become dear and all the teachers will speak the same knowledge. It is understood. You may still have a favorite Upanishad. Your guru still may shine as the best among everyone else, but it is okay. It is a vibhuti. Here vibhuti doesn't mean ashes, it's the glory. The likes and dislikes are converted into glories. just like the flute of Lord Krishna, the peacock feather of Lord Krishna. He loves them, but he is the same without them. This is where we get to. So the texts that have been chosen by Swami Muktatmananda ji and myself are really among the best. The Mundakopanishad verse that Swami Muktatmananda ji is going to unfold is the if one had to study one particular mantra in the Mundakopanishad, I believe it is this one. Parikshya lokan karmachitan nirvedam ayat, which describes the process of gaining freedom from these projections, from these useless desires and the pursuit of these useless desires, by examining everything in one's life, by conducting an honest, intellectually honest self-enquiry, and admitting that all these things that I have been pursuing are not giving me what I want. What I want is Ananta, the infinite. What I am after is that which is finite. And seeing this, one grows into a self maturity, and emotional growth takes place in the person, and the person resorts to the teacher and the teaching, chooses a teacher, and then faithfully follows the teachings. This is that text that Swami Muktatmananda ji, that mantra from the Mundakopanishad, the most important mantra, one of the most important, he is going to unfold. For our study, we are going to look at the, so in a way, it's a beautiful synergy between the text that he has chosen and the text that I am going to unfold. Because he is going to unfold the Mundakopanishad portion that talks about how to go about gaining the knowledge. And the portion of the Bodhasāra, a text that I will talk about presently, that I am going to unfold, is basically jñāni lakshana. What does the life of the jñāni, once you gain atmajnanam, what does that life look like? This is in fact something that we are doing on an ongoing basis. This section we have been studying with a group of students on an ongoing basis twice a month. And some of you, I think, will be familiar with that. But I just love this portion of the Bodhasāra so much that I wanted to share this a few verses, as many as we are able to do, with a larger audience, because I think that it will be very, very wonderful so that everybody can enjoy it. So this portion of the Bodhasāra is called Munindra Dinacharya. Char, to move, dina, day, dinacharya, the movement during the day. Timetable of who? Munindranam dinacharya. Dinacharya of the most exalted of the sages. So there are sages and sages, but how do you describe the most exalted? Well, again here the text is playing on your projection of wanting the best among the best and saying Munindranam. This is aupachariki. The word is just upachara. So you cannot sort of have a gradation of the jñānis. This one knows 3/4 Brahman. Oh, this one knows whole Brahman. Oh, I have to fall at the feet. This one knows only half of Brahman. Yo, just an informal greeting. This one knows 1/4 of Brahman. And you don't even look at that person, I suppose. Forget greeting. No such thing is there. Because Brahman cannot be made 1/4, half, 3/4. Brahman is whole. It is partless. So if it is partless, you cannot, then the one who knows Brahman is Brahman. Unlike any other branch of knowledge, when you understand Brahman, you are one with Brahman. Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. This is what the whole thing is. Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. Is in other branch of knowledge, you start teaching about, you become a botany professor, and then you don't go green after 20 years of teaching about leaves and everything. You don't develop chlorophyll coating on your cheeks, and then you don't waft into your classroom because now you have become a leaf. No such thing. And but the teacher of Brahman is Brahman. No separation from the subject matter and the pursuer, because the subject matter reveals the nature of the one who is pursuing this knowledge. Simple. So, this being the case, then what else to say here? So, Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati, since the knowledge, the subject matter and the person are one and the same, then the gradation of the jnani is unwarranted. Unwarranted. Then why does he use the word Munindra? Munindranam dinacharya. This is just out of respect to the whole process of exposing oneself to the knowledge and the Guru Shishya Parampara. All this we'll see, and then and then gaining this knowledge, etc. And so it is also pandering to the person who says, I don't want to simply know about an ordinary sage, I want to know the truth from the best among the sages. Take it, here it goes. Munindranam, and it's not taking out one person, it's like the best among the sages. So, among the sages, there are many sages, and then we are talking of the, this is how I suppose later on in contemporary business lingo. In what do we have? We have a presentation on best practices. So this is what it is. This is the best practices among of the lifestyle of the sages. So this is what we'll be studying, and the text itself is called Bodhasāra. Bodhasāra, Sara, essence, and Bodha, knowledge. Bodhasāra, the essence of the knowledge, the essence of the teaching of Vedanta, and it's a huge book. It's a magnum opus of an author called Narahari, and I will show you the book. It is bigger than Bhagavad Gita, bigger than Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. You see all these things. And you see these bookmarks, these are the ones we have been selected for study, and some we have already seen, and some we are in the process of looking at, some to look forward to. So this is the Bodhasāra, composed. We don't know exactly when it was composed, but the first manuscript was discovered in 1798, which is a very turbulent and an important period of Indian history, where the land was going, politically, it was going through the struggle for hegemony by various vultures. So the East India Company vulture was there, hovering around Calcutta and and that area, and then the Portuguese vultures were there, business interest, political interest, because the two are aligned, hovering around Goa. The French interests were there, hovering around Pondicherry and having it out with one another. And this was, this is a very beautiful time. Beautiful time, because it was, even though it was a politically turbulent time, leading to more colonization, leading to more bleeding from the coffers of India, and leading to more strife. It was also a beautiful time. Do you know why it was a beautiful time? Because these times of sandhi are rife with both dangers and possibilities, and we see this in the Indian historical climate of that time very, very well. So here are the economic interests vying for the land of spices, the land of silk, the land of riches, vying to have their own hegemony and stake. And then there is, here is the waning era of Mughal colonization that came before it, with all the the Islamic emperors coming from Persia and other places, wreaking havoc upon the land in so many ways. This is also a time of another juncture from the medieval to the modern era. We see that there is a change from the medieval to the modern era. So this is what is called sandhi, historical sandhi. And it is a time of possibilities, because we also see something wonderful happening. Vedanta is being taught in vernacular languages, through songs, through poems, through all these things. It's reaching a lot of people through the what is called the bhakti movement saints. Very, very nice, where it was all put in a simple way, in an easy to assimilate simple way. And so we have people composing all this. Why could they not have composed before? They could have, perhaps they did, but here is where the relevance was felt. The relevance and the need for this kind of a accessible Vedanta was felt. And Bodhasāra was composed around this time. And it is indeed a paradox, because it is written in chaste Sanskrit and very chaste poetry. So in a way it doesn't come under the bhakti movement literature, because it is not, it doesn't come under the various, what is that called, couplets by bhakti saints of the medieval Indian period. But at the same time, it is very accessible and very beautiful, because writing during this time gives him the ability to be a traditional teacher of Vedanta, Narahari, the writer, with untraditional examples, and that really hit home. Very untraditional examples. So, does he not talk about rope snake? Sure, he talks about rope snake, because how can you have Vedanta without rope snake? You can't. So, he will talk about rope snake, but he will talk about a lot more things. He will talk about the longing for the person of knowledge, for a mumukshu, for a seeker of freedom, for a jñāsu, for a person who is desiring this knowledge, and Ishvara as a love affair between Radha, the seeker, and Krishna, the object that is sought, which is in fact the nature of the subject. He talks about bhakti so beautifully. So he says bhakti is like, going and becoming one with the temple, because that is what people knew at that time. Sitting in the temple and getting lost in bhajans. And then what happens? Moksha is hanging out at the door. He talks like this. Moksha is like the Dwarapalakas. When you go into the temple, there are two warrior type devas adorning both the either side of the doors. So you replace the door guardians of the temple with moksha standing there. Moksha is waiting for the bhakta to come out of the temple, so that moksha can give the bhakta a hug. Because without bhakti, there is no mukti. These are the kind of evocative examples that one learns from the Bodhasāra. We don't know anything about the writer Narahari. We don't know anything at all. Nothing other than the fact that he lived and he wrote this. We don't know if he wrote other things, but this one we know for sure. And then, under the guidance of Pujya Swamiji, to an Australian couple by the name of Jennifer and Graham Cover, they translated this. Not an easy thing to translate. To translate a text of Vedanta does not merely require the skill of language, it requires Vedanta knowledge also. Very, very beautiful. And So we don't know anything about this Narahari other than the fact that he wrote this book and other than the fact that he had a student by the name of Divakara who wrote a commentary, a tika on this text. And Narahari is is got a flair for Vedanta. He comes from a very broad understanding. This is what Vedanta should make one become, really. This is the phala of studying Vedanta, that one becomes truly big. Bigger than one's problems, bigger than one's limitations, and also bigger than the rubric or the set mold of how Vedanta should be taught. That set mold is a prasada of the Guru Parampara. But that mold keeps changing. That's why the Guru Parampara is active. Otherwise it will get moldy. It doesn't get moldy because it is alive. In the hands of each teacher, it is resurrected back to life. Not that it was ever dead, but it is presented in a way that is completely relevant to time, place, and that and the need of that moment, the collective need of that moment. That is what makes the Guru Shishya Parampara, the lineage of the Guru and the student, the lineage, very meaningful. Certain texts, of course, are timeless. The Bodhasāra is one of them, timeless text. And Bhagavad Gita, timeless text. Upanishad, timeless texts. And then sometimes when we imbibe the knowledge of Vedanta, there can be a small pitfall. And what is that potential pitfall? The potential pitfall is that of taking the mold that was received from Adi Shankara and from one's own Guru and becoming a parrot of that. Initially, that's what happens, because what else do you know? What else do we know other than plagiarizing? So we just plagiarize. We are shameless plagiarists, happily and shamelessly plagiarizing what has been studied from the Guru, along with examples and along with jokes also. We are just repeating all that. And that's why when, during the long-term course, before we are let loose into the world, we have to take one long-term course. And one of the conditions for graduating from the course was to teach in front of Pujya Swamiji. We had to stand there or sit there and teach one mantra from some Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita. And then, in the beginning everybody would say, I think I will stand, and as soon as they would start teaching, they would say, I changed my mind, I want to sit down. So because there would be a knocking accompaniment to the student teaching, and that was nothing but one's own knees. Okay. And why was there this fear? The fear was there for many reasons. The fear was there because we didn't see ourselves as capable. Of course, we were not, we knew that we were not as capable as Pujya Swamiji, certainly not. And then the second reason why it was so frightening for nearly everybody, in fact everybody, was because what would we be saying? We would be saying everything that he said. So we were shockingly aware that there was nothing original, and there was nothing, including the jokes. We were shamelessly plagiarizing him. And the blessing he would give after each person had spoken, very good, he would say. Now make this your own. Make this verse your own. That would be the blessing. Which means what? In a way, the student takes what the teacher has given and then makes it relevant, pertinent, breathes new life into it, so that it speaks with the same efficacy with which the teacher spoke a decade ago, 10 decades ago. It has that same relevance, it has that same meaningfulness. A, the beauty of the teaching of Vedanta is that you grow so big that you break the mold. In fact, you don't break the mold, you reshape that mold. And then your student reshapes that mold again. Why am I speaking about this? Because Narahari has broken all the molds from before. There is nothing set about his teachings. He he shocks in so many ways. He surprises, he delights. And in those moments of shock, surprise, and delights, the knowledge sinks a little deeper because you hear it in a different way. And so that is a little bit I can say about the text Bodhasāra, and the commentary is also very useful. The commentary is that of one student called the Pandit Divakara, and Divakara, from his commentary, you can see, is a very traditional Vedantin. And he takes all these non-traditional verses and puts them back into the traditional mold. So we have the benefit of these of both. So the student and the teacher both shine. A very, very beautiful section. So this is what is Munindra Dinacharya, the lifestyle not of the rich and famous. There was one TV show like that. The lifestyles of the rich and the famous. And I don't know why it was so famous, but perhaps people they have a curiosity about people who live unlike them. Naturally, there is a curiosity. You don't want to look at your own life, correct? It is boring, especially during these lockdowns and everything. Surges, what is the use of these vaccines? The surges keep coming, the cases are going up, and now there are these variants, and and the variants have their own little namakarana, B117, and I want to be Brahman. What is this B117? I don't want to be 117, but this is what it is. So, here in this kind of a milieu, the teaching that is desired by the jignasu, by the mumukshu, it takes on a new relevance for which the Bodhasāra is very, very pertinent. It takes on a new relevance because especially during this pandemic, one is sick of one's life. Even otherwise, one was verily sick of one's life. And if one is tired and sick of one's life, one is certainly not curious about another's life. Another who is just like oneself. Nothing to see here, moving on. But the curiosity is there. The desire to learn about someone completely unlike myself is very much there in the human heart. I don't want myself, I want somebody unlike myself. That's why one is focused on celebrities. Because the celebrities have things that you don't have, at least two things. One is money, a lot of it. And then the other is fame, where there are camera people, reporters hiding in the bushes, in their lawn, in their gardens. Oh, they are having coffee. Oh, they are having a wardrobe malfunction. Everything is recorded and published in the yellow tabloids. Anything that they do is a fashion statement. Anything they say becomes a very, big thing. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a wonderful verse in the third chapter. Yad yad acharati shreshtha tattadevetaro janah sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanu vartate. Shreshtha means the exalted people. So the rich and the famous, the lifestyle of the rich and the famous take on a great importance in one's life because of our own personal projection about the rich and the famous as being two desirable qualities residing in this one celebrity. So they are not really Shreshthas. Shrestha means they're not really exalted. They're not doing any kind of social service. They are not giving in. They may be giving some small charity and all, but most of the time they're preoccupied with their own roles in the movies or wherever and in building their empire. Their empire of name, fame, and riches. So why do they become Shreshthas? Because of one's own personal projection, a collective projection that makes them the target of curiosity. And therefore what? Therefore, there are watchers for the show, especially a reality show called The Lifestyle of the Rich and the Famous. And what is that? There is one whole family. There is one, what is that? Starts with a K, something.
Kardashian.
Kardashian, whatever it is. Yeah.
Kardashian.
Yeah. So now everybody is obsessed. What did they do? What did they this thing? And they have children with weird names, and that itself becomes a sensation. And then they have, their extended family is there. Where did they go for holiday? What did they wear? What did they wear? What did they not wear? All these things. They become, because of the collective projection, the collective desire to be like somebody makes them into a Shrestha. They're not really, I mean, they may be, but they're not really, they need not be Shrestha. But the maxim in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a nyaya that is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The maxim is yad yad acharati shrestha. However, these important people in the world behave. Important again is a subjective projection here. Tat tat eva itaro janaha. The rest of the people are also like that. Behave like that. They want to be like that. Sayat pramanam kurute, whatever the Kardashians of the world decide to do, the rest of the people have a longing to follow. This is a maxim of the Bhagavad Gita. That's why, people are very, very curious about the life of celebrities. But this curiosity is a dangerous curiosity. That is why we have a expression that says curiosity killed the cat. you know, Very hard to kill cats because they have 9 lives supposedly, but nonetheless, the curiosity, because of the curiosity, the cat went too close to its doom. So this is a amangala kutuhala, a very inauspicious curiosity. Being fixated about celebrities, movie stars, sports stars, etc., is not going to get you anywhere. Why? Because after you are curious, what happens? It leads to sorrow. First curiosity, then sorrow, because when will I become like them? Not in this life. So the curiosity is a vicarious desire to live their life kind of indirectly through them. And what a travesty that is. That means over your own life you have projected on somebody else's life. You find your life so unbearable that you have fixated on, obsessed on somebody else's life, following their every move, following what they ate, what they did, how they slept, how they got up, what they wear, what they don't wear, what they say, what they don't say. It can only lead to amangala, inauspiciousness. Amangala means, where the end is not in sight. Amangala is that pursuit which leaves you seeking all the time. Then that celebrity number one falls from your eyes, and then you fixate on celebrity number two. And then that person also undergoes a fall, or simply loses his or her riches, loses the fame, and then you go on to celebrity number three. The pain and the sorrow of not being able to reckon with one's own life is neither addressed nor resolved. Therefore, it is amangala kutuhala. Now, people are also very curious about the lives of sadhus, saints. Here we say it is a mangala kutuhala. It is a mangala kutuhala. It's an auspicious curiosity, because looking into the life of saints and sages does something beautiful for the heart. It inspires one to be like them. And then on the empirical level and on the paramarthika level, on the level of the absolute, in fact, you are them already. It helps you grow into discovering that you are like them. And in emulating their lifestyle, you come closer to gaining this understanding that you are like them. You come closer to preparing for this knowledge. So this is Mangala Kutuhala, biography of saints, biography of sages, and the lifestyle of sages. So this curiosity, so he has a whole section, a very elaborate section on this kind of a, that answers this kind of a kutuhala. What is this kutuhala? What is the day-to-day life of sages? The day-to-day life of sages, I want to know. The day-to-day life of sages means how do the sages live? How do the sages get up in the morning? Because you know how you get up in the morning, mostly you don't, and then when you do, it is very difficult. You rub your eyes, where is the coffee, where is the brew of choice, and then and then you need a reward for brushing the teeth, and then you need another reward for taking a shower, and then you want to eat something, and then there is it's just a ho hum life. The life of a sage is not a ho hum life, it's a so hum life. And so, therefore, you are curious. What is the difference between a ho hum life and a life that is given to so hum, saha aham, or sa hum? What is the difference? And then here is where the beauty comes. And here is where one is very, very curious. How does the sage wake up? What does the sage do? And we are going to be treated to some very beautiful poetry, and to some wonderful Sanskrit, and to some great Vedanta as well. And with these words we can look at the first verse, and then you can chant with me. Are you able to see the screen share? Yes? No? Yes?
It's there now.
Fantastic.
Yes, now we can see.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So, Munindra Dinacharya, the daily life of the best among the sages. And then the first thing is Pratar Jagaranartha Nirnayaha. There is a pun. So it simply means on the subject of awakening. And then it also means deciding to get up in the morning. Yeah. So he begins this section with his own prayer before embarking on the life of the sages, the daily life of the sages. What brand of coffee do they drink, and how do they wake up, what do they do, etc. Here he offers his own worship and prayers before he goes into the life of the sages themselves. So let us chant. Vichitraksaravinyasaihi. You can just silently repeat. Vichitraksaravinyasaihi pavitrarthakatharasaihi pavitrarthakatharasaihi पावयामि निजां वाणीं पावयामि निजां वाणीं मुनीन्द्रदिनचर्यया मुनीन्द्रदिनचर्यया. Very beautiful. So he says that, before talking about this story of the daily life of the sages, I am going to worship, I am going to offer some worship so that the daily life of the sages comes alive. And what is the nature of this worship that he offers in the first two verses, and how the whole section commences, we will see in the next class, I think tomorrow. Okay? Yeah. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. हरिः ॐ. श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. हरिः ॐ. Thank you.
Thank you, Amma.